Good morning and welcome to the Libertarian Atheists Skypecast. Today is Saturday, January 21st, 2017, and we have with us Jeremy, Heather, Betsy, and Adam. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Has everyone noticed how great America is today?
I love it. I got my hat on. Just kidding.
I have my Ron Paul sweatshirt on.
There you go.
Yeah, so, of course, yesterday Donald Trump was officially inaugurated as President of the United States. So depending upon whom you ask, we're either in utopia or dystopia.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like there's much middle ground, does it?
No.
Except among libertarians.
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't watch any of the inauguration. Did any of you watch the inauguration?
I did not.
I didn't watch much of it because I was busy. I had stuff to do, but I did record it, so I'm going to go back and watch parts of it. But
Okay. Well, if we all want to dissect it maybe later on, we can maybe do that on the next Skype recording.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah,
just...
I did watch most of it, but we can wait. Yeah.
I
Okay.
did, but I haven't
Get off
watched
the
an
golf
inauguration
on that.
since Ronald Reagan became president. It was the last time I watched an inauguration, so...
I can't remember when I watched one ever, really. I mean, I don't think I have.
It's always something, blah, 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 America. So.
I would have been busy watching G.I. Joe back then, I think. Or maybe
Yeah,
Transformers.
I was just a little kid, but my dad, that was like when I first really became aware of politics, and my dad was a huge Ronald Reagan fan, so I, of course, by proxy was a fan of Ronald Reagan, even though I hadn't,
Right.
I think I was about 9 or 10 at the time.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. Before we started recording, Heather, well, actually, Adam brought up the topic about, plastic six-packs, rings, and things like that, plastic packaging.
And how it affects the environment.
Right. Now, on a related topic, it's actually, loosely related. It brought to my mind something that I read, that plastic packaging is not just affecting the environment, but geology. And
Really?
yes, there's a study by some researchers from the University of Western Ontario, and there's I'm trying to look for the term, but there's basically a new type of conglomerate rock that incorporates broken down plastics. It's basically formed when plastic wastes interact with and conglomerate with volcanic rock. So yes, so now we are affecting geology with our wastes as well, which I thought was
Can that rock be used for to build houses?
I don't know. I mean,
I wonder if there's a use.
Right, there's no positive purpose to it.
Right.
I'd have to read the study. I've only had about the past 5 minutes to look at this study and haven't gotten much from it.
We should ask Curran Kemp about it because he's a geologist. He would be really knowledgeable, I bet, or he would be able to answer the questions.
Yeah, if we could get him to join a Skypecast, that'd be great.
I know. I've asked him a couple times, but I don't want to bug people. You know what I mean? If they don't want to, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, really, and if he wants to join, he knows he's welcome.
That's right.
To.
Okay.
So.
Here's a quote from an article about it from the New Statesman, and it describes it as the plastic becomes incorporated into rock mainly in the form of confetti, tiny particles formed as larger items break down. The result is analogous to sedimentary rocks such as limestone, says Patricia Corcoran of Western University. So there's your useless bit of trivia before we get into the main topic.
Well, that's
interesting, though.
It's weird how environment will find a way to do stuff like that. Because, as a side, I know when I was reading about Chernobyl over the years, every once in a while you'll see something about Chernobyl, and I'll read it. And I don't know, it's probably been several years back now because our sense of time goes much quicker.
It does.
And so they were talking about how there's a bacteria, I think, in the ground at Chernobyl that chews up and neutralizes basically nuclear waste. And I can't remember Exactly, or maybe they were talking about using that bacteria in Chernobyl. I can't remember exactly how it was, but anyway, there is some kind of bacteria that uses nuclear waste and turns it, neutralizes it essentially.
Wow.
I know. I think that's like one of the, and it's like
something always happens in technology, or like you said, in the natural world, it seems to balance out the hysteria and make it not as bad as everybody thought over time.
Yeah, I mean, time is an equalizer for sure.
It is.
Was that a genetically modified bacterium or a naturally occurring that they used to clean up oil spills? Because that was a big breakthrough back in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't remember the specifics now. It's been so long, but I just remember I thought that was really fascinating, and it's another one of those things how
that really is.
Nature can find a way to heal even the worst of things if you give it enough time. It evolves much quicker than we do. So.
Yep.
Okay. So, topic suggested by
Betsy
today was a Michael Shermer video. Michael Shermer of what skeptical organization is he the head of?
Well, he's the editor of Skeptic Magazine, but I'm trying to think what his organization is.
Is it the Skeptic Society?
Is it?
Isn't it? I don't know.
I can't think of it either because I know he's pretty big in the atheist community. Because
yeah, you're right though. I remember that, Betsy. That yes, he is basically like the founder or editor.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It is the Skeptic Society.
Okay.
He's one of the few libertarian atheists.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's why I like him, is that he's politically not a leftist, he's one of the few.
When it comes to conservative skepticism, the hardcore scientific skeptics, that's probably where you're going to find the most libertarian atheists, is in that subset of, I don't know, secular thought.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and that's been my experience. There's the Facebook group used to be called Skepticism, and one of the admins got cheeky and changed it to Skeptics.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, skeptics. As we're dicks about our skepticism. But yeah, it's
stupid.
That was nasty.
So clever, isn't it?
Right.
But still, I enjoy the group. They share they share a lot of good skeptical articles and. But anyway, so back to Michael Shermer. God Does Not Exist is the video, and we will now listen and comment periodically as we listen. Can everyone hear it?
Yep.
Yeah, do you want me to call out a time or just wait?
Thank you.
If you've got notes, Adam, go ahead and call out.
According to the Oxford University Press's World Christian
This one's coming up.
Encyclopedia, 84% of the world's population belongs to some form of organized religion and believes in some form of God, which at the end of this year is about 5.9 billion people.
So your first point, Adam, was with the statistics about the religions.
84%, in case there's any doubt. Uh-oh, I've got a little echo.
Yeah, I'm hearing an echo too. Just to throw in, this was 2012.
Hang on, let me lower this.
It might be us too.
Is somebody not wearing their headphones, maybe?
Well, we have to use a speaker because we share one mic.
We moved the microphone though, so I'm gonna have Jeremy move it back.
I moved it closer, but it was next to our speaker, so that might be the problem.
That might be it.
How's that better?
I'm still hearing an echo.
Okay, go up a little bit farther.
Am I echoing too?
Okay.
I'm going to try to lower
There, how's
the volume
that?
of my speakers
Is that better at all?
as low as possible.
Check,
I don't hear
check.
it now.
Okay, yeah, it's the placement of our microphone, so we got it.
Okay.
So, in case there's any doubt, we've got our work ahead of us because 84% of the world's population. I don't know what the date of Shermer's recording was.
This is in 2012.
Okay,
so
it's probably maybe a little difference.
Yeah, just slightly. I wouldn't think
then,
dramatically.
but yeah, so we kind of forget that we're an anomaly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, that's so true.
Now, which Was he? You have one of his books, and I'm trying to remember the name of
mine. I have a bunch of his books. How We Believe was
Why people believe strange
and Why
things.
People Believe Weird Things. Yeah, is the other one. He's got what is the one about the Darwin? Oh gosh, I can't remember what it is. The Science of Good and Evil is another one.
Mm-hmm. No, I was actually bringing up to Heather. I should have. I was actually bringing up. There's an older researcher who was prominent in like the 60s and 70s, and I'm not sure if his field of expertise was anthropology or psychology, one or the other. But basically had an explanation as to why people are religious, and it's essentially inherent. It's pretty well known. I wanted to say Carl Jung at first, but I don't think that's the guy. I don't think it was.
Oh, Carl Jung.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I've read him too back in school, but I can't remember.
I mean, he's very well known. He's pretty much standard fare for all manner of college courses, and so.
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't think I had a Michael Shermer book. I mean, I've got some.
No, I was talking about somebody else because of the claim that religion is somewhat inherent in human psychology.
Yes. And there's a lot of writings, even more current, that confirm that. Like Steven Pinker talks about that in some of his books. Just studying the brain, there's definitely an innate element of pretty much every human to be vulnerable to superstition and believing things without evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think to be rational is really more work. Your brain wants to tend toward believing things first.
It really is learned behavior.
Right.
Because
Skepticism.
Even when we had our previous discussion, and I talked about how I was probably an atheist from a very early age. It doesn't mean that I was a skeptic,
That's right.
And it doesn't mean that I had an understanding of rational thought and basing my positions on facts and evidence. So skepticism is not inherent in people, really.
Right. And it takes practice because you fall back easily into just believing someone because an authority said it, or all those fallacies we're all vulnerable to them, even when we try to be skeptics.
Yeah, and most of us have been, we're born and raised with some kind of mythos,
That's exactly right.
And that really can shape, how we think about the world at large. And I can see where that, so I don't know if you were, if people that were surrounded by nothing but atheists their whole life might have a different opinion, but I don't think there's too many of those, really.
I don't either.
Mm-mm.
Skepticism itself can be, as a movement, can be not skeptical.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confirmation bias within the skepticist, I guess, movement, if you want to call it that. Bandwagoning. I think a good example of that is 9/11 Truth. So, just to be clear, I accept that it's Saudi hijackers that flew planes into buildings. Those details check out from what I've read and researched on my own. But the official account by the 9/11 Commission, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. Now, of course, you bring that up to certain skeptics, and they're like, "Oh, well, here's the tinfoil hat weirdo, believes in conspiracy theories, just because I don't, swallow the 9/11 Commission report whole,
Right.
So what you're talking about is Jeremy, is a conspiracy after the fact. So not the actual events of 9/11 that led to the planes flying into the buildings, but how the government reacted to it after it happened.
Yes and no. The government exploited the 9/11 attacks to go into Iraq. Clearly, that's not even a conspiracy theory. That's just proven. And then I think there was a lot of stateside involvement with that enabled the hijackers to carry out the attacks that was basically denied by the 9/11 Commission.
Right. Well, one could argue that that just the act of damage control by government is in itself a conspiracy after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
So.
Okay. Well, back to the video here.
Christians have about 2 billion of those 5.9 billion. About half of those are Catholics. Muslims come in at just a tad over 1 billion. Hindus at around 850 million. Buddhists at almost 400 million. And then several hundred million other ethno-religionists, animists, and other God believers around the world. Worldwide, there are about 10,000 distinct religions, each one of which may be further subdivided and classified. Christians, for example, may be apportioned among about 34,000 different denominations. From a scientist's perspective, such percentages cry out for an explanation. Why do so many people believe these things? But from a skeptic's perspective, which is what I do, what are the chances that these guys got the right God and the right religion, and the billions of other people that don't believe what they believe got it wrong? When you leave the house tonight, just ask yourself that question. What are the chances that they just happened to get it right? And the tens of billions of people that lived before Jesus, they never heard of it. The tens of billions of people that have lived since then who don't believe that, they just happen to be wrong? Or is it more likely that all of these religion and God beliefs are socially constructed, psychologically constructed, and that none of them are right in any reality sense, in any ontological sense? They're all constructed this way. In my few minutes, I will present to you two lines of evidence for this claim that humans created God and religion, not vice versa.
Before he gets further, I do kind of want to take issue with his numbers. I don't think that there were probably tens of billions of people
before Jesus, yeah.
Right, because the population explosion, which has brought us to where we're at, I think we've passed the 8 billion threshold, and we're going to hit 9 billion in the next 20 years for world population. A lot of that population growth has happened in the last 100 years. A vast majority of that population growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I almost feel like he misspoke when he said tens of billions.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably just used for effect more than anything else.
Yeah, it just doesn't ring true that he meant to say that to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a forgivable error, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't trying to be totally accurate there. I think he's just proving a point. That,
right.
You know.
Like massive numbers of people before.
Yes.
Didn't believe the way that Christians believe,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I don't know if this is relevant to what Dr. Shermer said or his oversight, but I read one time that for every person alive on the earth today, 80 people have died.
Huh, that's an interesting statistic. I've never...
Yeah, about 80 people have died for every person on the earth today. Now, how far they go back, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they go back to thinking man, Homo sapien man, and they get those figures. But I remember seeing that somewhere, just to give people an idea of how many people have come and gone.
Yes.
Well, meanwhile, I remember reading that world population, the 1 billion mark, wasn't hit until I think the early 20th century, if not maybe late 19th at the earliest. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I read that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe my understanding of the math is all wrong, but I mean that seems. I guess we just have to find the best source, as a good skeptic would. So.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I guess if you go back, let's say, what would we do? Go back anywhere from 100,000 years to 250,000 years if we consider the beginnings of thinking man. Is that right?
Yeah, but I mean, then the species that we belong to, Homo sapiens, how old is that? It's relatively new. I think it's barely 100,000 even. You know,
Right.
There's a lot of competing human species that have been basically in existence for right around 1 million years. So, yeah, I mean.
Oh, I just looked up. It says Homo sapiens around 200,000 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was between 100,000 and 200,000.
And it says, while our ancestors have been around for about 6 million years, the modern form of humans only evolved about 200,000 years ago.
Okay. So maybe it is true that there have been tens of billions of Homo sapiens.
Maybe the king of skepticism is right. No, I don't know.
Okay, we'll continue.
The first is evolutionary theory. The second is social psychology, comparative world religions, and mythology. First, we go back in time. Our story goes back millions of years. So put yourself back in time, let's say 3.5 million years ago. You're a little hominid on the plains of Africa, a little Australopithecine. Your name is Lucy. Thank you. A lot of people in America don't get that joke. And you hear a rustle in the grass. Is it a dangerous predator, or is it just the wind? Well, if you assume that the rustle in the grass is a dangerous predator, and it turns out it's just the wind, you've made a type 1 error, a false positive. You thought A was connected to B, but you're wrong. That's a relatively harmless error to make. You just become more cautious, vigilant, skittish, like you see animals on the plains of Africa today. On the other hand, if you think the rustle in the grass is just the wind and it turns out it's a dangerous predator, you're lunch. Congratulations, you've just been given a Darwin Award for taking yourself out of the gene pool early before reproducing. And we are the descendants of those who are most likely to make type 1 errors versus type 2 errors. False positives rather than false negatives. Now, why can't you just sit there in the grass and collect more data until you get it right? Because predators don't wait around for prey animals to collect more data. That's why they're stealthy and stalk their prey. So we evolved the propensity to make snap decisions. The rule of thumb is assume all rustles in the grass are dangerous predators and not the wind, just in case. Assume everything you read and hear and see is real. Now, what's the difference between the wind and a dangerous predator? The wind is an inanimate force. A dangerous predator is an intentional agent. His intention is to eat me, and that probably can't be good. So we also evolved the capacity not only to find these patterns and make those kinds of errors instead of the other, assume everything is real, we also infuse into those patterns intentional agency. We just think everything is not just real, but real and animated, alive, even if it's invisible. We now have a lot of evidence from cognitive psychology that this begins at a very early age, perhaps as early as age 2 or 3. I'll just give you one experiment among many. Jesse Baring's research with little children who are brought into a room and they're given one of these little balls with Velcro on it, and you throw it at the dartboard and it sticks on it. That's the goal. So they're brought into the room, but they're not allowed to just do that with their good hand. They're turned around and they have to do it backwards. So they're really bad at it, as any of us would be. And then the experimenter leaves the room and he says, just do the best you can and come out and tell me how you did. So of course they all walk up there and just stick it on the thing, right? All right, part 2 of the experiment. The little children are brought in and each of them is told, right next to the dartboard is a chair here. On the chair is Princess Anne. She's an invisible princess and she can see everything you're doing. Experimenter leaves the room. All of a sudden, the children stop going up to cheat. The shadow of enforcement, the sort of infusion of agency of an invisible being in a chair that sees what we do, keeps track of our moral behavior, begins at a very early age. Our brains have evolved this capacity for agency. That's the earliest God beliefs. Okay, next line of evidence. Here's what happened about 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. these animistic, simple God beliefs and sort of social religions that evolved to help us live together as a social primate species began to break down as populations grew from a couple dozen to a couple hundred individuals to thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people in state societies, from bands and tribes to chieftains and states. We needed some more formal means of behavior control and enforcing the rules of social cooperation. Two institutions evolved for that: government and religion. Government says, here's a copy of the rules, everybody gets one, and here's the punishments if you break the rules. Religion says, if you think you got away with it and you cheated the state, nuh-uh. There's an eye in the sky that knows all and sees all, and in the next life, justice will be served. That's a very powerful...
That was my next
Okay.
quote.
Go ahead.
So, when I heard this, that quote, religion says, if you think you got away with it and you cheated the state, there's an eye in the sky that knows all and sees all. In the next life, justice will be served. So, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, not so fast, Dr. Shermer. How many times throughout history has religion taken the law into its own hands right here on the spot on Earth? We can think of those times, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm not saying he's wrong. It's just that he paints a picture as if religion is passive,
Right.
and let God sort it out. That's not always the case.
Right.
No, you're right. I mean,
And you know, just ask someone who's was accused of witchcraft, in the
right.
1500s.
As you said, Adam, though, as Shermer said, if God, or whatever religion you're referring to, is all knowing, then that would basically place them in a level of higher authority than the state. And you see that, not so much to this day, but you still see it to this day.
Well, in militant Islam, you certainly see it. I mean, they, like, say, the ones that are in the U.S. and should be subject to U.S. law that says you don't rape a child or you don't kill your daughter because she slept with her boyfriend, and they still do it. So they're putting the religious law above the state law.
Yes, definitely.
But
So that's a clear-cut case of one law, the God law superseding the national or whatever state law.
But even in an abstract sense, yesterday with the inauguration, with Trump swearing on the Bible,
Right.
showing that, that symbolism, showing that, I accept the Lord as, as the one who bestowed this authority in me, and
Yep, I agree.
There's kind of a more there's symbology involved in that. So
I mean, when you go, and I haven't been in court in a long time, but when you go to court, do they still swear you in on the Bible?
I'm pretty sure they do.
In just local courts and municipal and all that?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that hasn't changed. That pomp and circumstance for everything is always that way.
Formality
I think it depends. I think if
that could be.
I don't. They make you take the oath, I think, but not necessarily do they use a Bible unless maybe in a criminal case. But I don't know in a civil case.
From what I understand, you can opt to not use the Bible. You still, of course, have to swear your oath, but you could, if
just raise your hand and do it.
If it offends your religious sensibilities, and you can say, well, I prefer to not have to use the prop, so.
Oh, interesting. I did look it up real quick, and it does say an affirmation of truth. Hold on. And I had it. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to go back here. An affirmation of truth is required everywhere before testifying in court, but many courts don't bother with the Bible anymore, and nowhere is it mandatory. Atheists can simply swear or affirm that they will tell the truth.
Okay.
So, good to know. Good to know.
So that's a change, I think, in the culture. You know, I think 150 years ago, I doubt that would have, everybody probably just did it without questioning.
Right.
With the exception of the Deep South, where they make everyone kiss the Bible.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I imagine if Trump, you know, I mean, it's all symbolic. You know, him laying his hand on the Bible is to appeal to his base.
Yes, I just find it, like I've posted a couple times, just laughable when people actually think that he's super religious, personal savior kind of guy. It just is laughable.
Oh, I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
I know.
He's
You're
never
right.
shown
It's
signs of being anything but secular.
Right.
Yeah, no, I admit that it's probably likely that he believes in some sort of higher power, but beyond that, he's hardly serious about religion in any way.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly doesn't pray before he makes a decision, whereas I think Mike Pence does.
Yeah.
He's a real born-again Christian, but Trump, nah.
Secular-minded presidents are nothing new, though. I mean, it seems pretty apparent to me that Obama was, he spent a lot of time in black churches, but I mean, that's networking. That's
more like community organization and civil rights kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
there are people who have argued that Obama is not a religious person and that he may actually be an atheist.
Really?
Yeah, I have heard that argument. I mean, and from Obama supporters, ironically enough, I mean, usually the claim that Obama is an atheist is meant as a pejorative by his critics, but I've actually seen that claim also made by supporters. Obviously atheist supporters of Obama that want him to view him as more like themselves.
It's hard to know what they think in their heart.
That's right.
We may find out after they leave office. Another example of this, before Obama left office, he said, I really think marijuana should be legalized, just like Clinton did. Clinton did exactly the same thing. If only they were in a position to actually do something about it. I mean, it's amazing. They hold this stuff in until it can't damage them anymore.
That's right.
And then they let it out, and they don't see how it damaged the society at large while they were holding the highest office in the land.
Goes to show how politics in general are quite damaging.
Right. And they're really not all about the people like they pretend. They're narcissists.
Yeah,
I mean,
and this is why I'm skeptical about Trump.
Right.
All right, so we'll pick up here again.
For social control. Again, if it happens with little kids, you can do it with adults, which is what churches are all about. So that's the modern version. That's what happens with that. Now, second line of inquiry on social phenomenon and comparative world religions. As a back-of-the-envelope calculation within an order of magnitude accuracy, we can safely conclude that over the last 10,000 years of history, there's been about 10,000 different religions and roughly about 1,000 different gods. Again, the house question for you, which side of the room you leave on tonight. What is the probability that Yahweh is the one true God in Amun-Ra, Aphrodite, Apollo, Baal, Brahman, Ganesha, Isis, Mithras, Osiris, Shiva, Thor, Vishnu, Wanton, Zeus, and the other 986 gods are all false gods? You guys are atheists just like me, of all the gods I just rattled off. Some of us just go one God further. Now, think about this as another thought experiment.
That's a point that is kind of brought up over and over again. It's almost a catchphrase. I don't know if Shermer is the one that originates it. Penn Jillette's one that I've heard use it quite often is you're an atheist too, you just need to go one God further.
Yep, you just believe in one more God than I do. It does make you think. It's a different twist on it, kind of.
I think it's one of the most powerful arguments that you can use to get people to think about their God belief.
Does Anthony Magnabasco ever use that? Do you remember ever hearing him say something like? I don't think he does. In those interviews.
Well, he does, but he turns it a little bit. He says, if faith is different for everyone, depending on their religion, what they believe, how can we be sure that one faith is correct when it varies from person to person to person?
Right. Right. He does it in a little bit more of a questioning way. He doesn't make statements.
Yeah, his approach, and I'm not knocking it at all because I think it's very successful. His approach is very friendly, very benign. He doesn't delve deep into a person's psychology, and he doesn't really get a lot of details about their upbringing, what kind of traumatic events might have occurred in their life that could have steered them toward a God belief.
Right. Sorry, I'm just waiting.
And I just think I think it's necessary. I really do. I think you really have to get down to what happened to you that made you become this type of fanatic.
Yeah, but I don't think that everybody has a traumatic event that makes
No, I guess I'm only saying about the real fanatics.
I don't even think that's necessarily true. I think the group think kind of thing can take over once you get in, depending on what kind of a church you get involved in.
Well, but I would also include I would also include just childhood conditioning. Just I don't want to use the word normal, but just typical childhood conditioning by parents who are also religious. So it almost is a form of trauma. There's one guy who actually did street epistemology on his son, who is I don't know, about 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old. And it was amazing because the child was only subjected to religious indoctrination for a couple of years between the ages of 2 and 3. And after that, the indoctrination stopped because the father was an atheist and the mother started to reject mainstream religion as well. But yet the kid has retained all of these beliefs and hasn't let go of them quite yet.
Oh, wow.
It was
That's
amazing.
strange.
Just a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, he's still in need of a debriefing. You know,
That's strange.
It
Especially
really is.
for being so young.
Are you sure it was 2 and 3? Because most kids, they think you don't really
might have been a
remember
little
anything.
older than that,
Yeah.
but it wasn't much older.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and it only took, like I said, and they say this, it takes very little time to get indoctrinated into a cult.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time to get yourself out of one.
Right. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Well, I mean, now that show that's been on about Scientology, that Leah Remini's doing on A&E, I've watched some of those. I mean, and those people who took their kids and got them into that cult early on, the damage is just extensive because they literally were cut off.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
they were basically living there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is-
That's Sam Harris's latest podcast, Waking Up podcast, with the author of the book about Scientology that was made into a documentary.
Okay, I'm going to have to
And
look.
it is fantastic. It's I can't, and I wrote this on the Facebook page, but I can hardly listen to Sam Harris anymore because of his political views.
Right.
He's really switched the emphasis from religion to politics.
I agree with you. He brings it in with every guest, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I can't deal with it anymore. I mean, it's just for as brilliant as he is about the mind and religion, he is so naive about politics.
Yeah. I see that a lot, actually. My dad is so very intelligent and well-spoken and can really frame together great thoughts, but he's so stuck on being religious that it gets in the way, and it's like, I can never understand that.
Sam Harris is I guess, a pretty staunch Democrat, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I would imagine.
He does side with the left, but for example, he did vote for Hillary Clinton over Trump, but then he's also got some interesting neoconservative principles.
See, that's the thing. Leftists as a whole seem to really despise Sam Harris, and it's because he's not all in with contemporary leftist ideology.
Right.
He's
right.
He's not part of the regressive left. I mean, that's what that's what Dave Rubin has done too. Right. That's the same thing with Dave Rubin.
Right. And then, I mean, with leftism, it's interesting. There's kind of a schism happening where you ironically have conservative leftism versus the new school progressive leftism. And I suppose, yes, you could call Sam Harris a conservative leftist.
Yep.
Yeah, he also supports the war on jihad, so
which is another point of contention with progressive leftists.
The leftists.
That's right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, his whole Muslim thing, and Ayaan Hirsi Ali, they just hate her. You know what I mean? They really don't like her.
Yeah.
She's a more libertarian anyway.
She is. She certainly is. She identifies as such, and
I admire her.
And that's great. I think we need someone like that.
Wouldn't it be great if we could get her to join our group?
It's an honor.
It would be an honor,
really
for sure. For sure. I admire her as well.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let me go ahead and...
Sure.
Say the United States or England in the 20th century, there's a good chance that you believe that Yahweh is the all-powerful and all-knowing creator of the universe who manifested into flesh through Jesus of Nazareth. If you happen to have been born in India in the 20th century, there's a very good chance you're a Hindu who believes that Brahma is the unchanging, infinite, transcendent creator of all matter, energy, time, and space, and who manifests into flesh through Ganesha, the blue elephant god who is the most worshipped divinity in India. To an anthropologist from Mars, these are all indistinguishable. Of course, they're individually different, but taking the big picture, they're all indistinguishable in that sense. Even within the three great Abrahamic religions, who can say which is the right one? Christians believe that Jesus is the Savior, and you must accept him to receive eternal life in heaven. Jews do not accept Jesus as their Savior. Neither do Muslims. In fact, roughly 2 billion of the world's 5.9 billion don't accept that. So what happens to them? Again, are they really right, and all those other good people who believe just as passionately as they do are wrong? Where Christians believe that the Bible is an inherent gospel handed down from the deity, Muslims believe that the Quran is the perfect word of God. It's unfortunate that the creator of the universe wrote more than one holy book.
Right?
Christians believe that Christ is the latest prophet. Muslims believe that Muhammad is the latest prophet. Mormons believe that Joseph Smith is the latest prophet. And stretching this track of thought just a little bit more, Scientologists believe that the science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard was the latest prophet. So many prophets, so little time. Flood myths, very common throughout history. Predating the biblical Noachian flood story by centuries, the Epic of Gilgamesh was written around 1800 BC, warned by Babylonian earth god Ea that other gods were about to destroy all life on by a flood. Utnapishtim was instructed to build an ark in the form of a cube, 120 cubits on each side, 180 feet roughly speaking, with 7 floors, each divided into 9 compartments, in which 2 of every animal is to be brought onto the ship. Virgin birth myths likewise spring up throughout time and geography. Among those alleged to have been conceived without the usual assistance of the male lineage, and by the way, Mr. Hitchens, this comes from your brother's book, Dionysus, Perseus, Buddha, Attis, Krishna, Horus, Mercury, Romulus, and of course, Jesus. Consider the parallels between Dionysus, the ancient Greek god of wine, and Jesus of Nazareth. Both were said to have been born from a virgin mother, who was a mortal woman, but were fathered by the King of Heaven. Both allegedly returned from the dead, transformed water into wine, introduced the idea of eating and drinking the flesh and blood of the Creator, and to have been the liberator of mankind. Flood myths, not original to you. Virgin birth myths, not original to you. Resurrection myths, not original to you. Osiris is the Egyptian god of life, death, and fertility, and is one of the oldest gods for whom records have survived. Osiris first appears in the pyramid texts around 2400 BC. 2400 before that other guy, by which time his following was already well established. Widely worshipped until the compulsory repression of pagan religions in the early Christian era, Osiris was not only the redeemer and merciful judge of the dead in the afterlife, he was also linked to fertility, most notably and appropriately for the geography, the flooding of the Nile. By the way, there is a geographical link between flood myths and bodies of water that flood. Not universal floods. Just where you have
okay. I'll pause it.
The kings of...
Yeah, that was interesting to me that, here you have an area, let's say the Nile River, that floods repeatedly.
Yeah.
And it floods, doesn't it flood every year, right? I mean, it's part of the
I know it floods
ecosystem.
regularly. I can't remember how often it does, but yeah. I mean,
but so they see something in nature that they don't understand, and they apply some supernatural cause to it.
right.
Yep. It's so simple, doesn't it? Just seem like how did so many people then spend? I mean, modern day Christians just spend huge amounts of time and effort trying to find physical evidence for this thing, this ridiculous myth, fairy tale.
So
it's just crazy.
And does he? Would he also mean that Shermer also mean that in places where there aren't bodies of water that flood, I don't know where that would be, but does that mean that you wouldn't find flood myth stories there? You'd find maybe other kind of stories.
There's flood myth stories from every corner of the globe, going back, extending back to prehistory, really, way back, even I think they've even talked about how you can see those stories in cave paintings. So, because I mean, they're just been perpetuated throughout time. So orally, those traditions were handed down. So, and they just became incorporated into,
another possible
cultures.
Another possible origin of flood myths, because there's actually some really contentious debate about I'm terrible with my geological eras, or but this would be post-dinosaur extinction and probably pre-humans, or very early human history. At any rate, there's some contention about what had caused what we can see in the geological evidence, catastrophic flooding in the Pacific Northwest, Western Canada, things like that. And there's other evidence of that, basically in the northern hemisphere throughout the world. It's a really interesting topic. Actually, this would be early human history now that I'm thinking of it.
Well, they say that the flood myths come probably from the last glacial period.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Yes. So.
Right, the Ice Age floods.
Mm-hmm. So, and the ones in North America too, may be based on, I'm reading this, on sudden rise in sea levels caused by the rapid draining of prehistoric Lake Agassiz in the end of the last ice age.
And that's the debate. The lake that was formed by an ice dam, supposedly the dam melted enough to where it cracked and broke, and then, of course, released literally thousands of cubic miles of water, which is, I mean, that's an impossibly huge amount of water, and then caused catastrophic flooding
all over the planet.
Basically,
right.
yes.
Which is where you get all these myth stories then. So
it's a sort of myth, but that catastrophic flood, there's actually a point of scientific debate. There's some researchers that insist, okay, the movement of water is too great to even be caused by that. It must have been more than likely from an asteroid or a comet striking the ocean. And so I mean, that's a whole altogether another interesting topic. But yes, around that time in the ice ages, there was planetary catastrophic flooding, basically caused by the climate warming. What the accepted you know the status quo is the climate warmed at the end of the ice age. You had numerous large lakes that were where you had immense amounts of water held in by ice dams. They cracked and broke. These lakes released and then caused damage throughout the planet. There's geological formations in the northwestern United States of they're crater-like, and they look like they've been scrubbed out basically by rapidly churning water, and that's evidence of this event towards the end of that last ice age.
So let me ask the group a question. Considering the Noah narrative in the Old Testament, so do you think that if man's experience with natural disasters had been something other than floods, do you think the Noah story would have been replaced by some other story, whether it be earthquakes,
wind events,
tornadoes, or maybe even if an asteroid had
or fire,
hit, or whatever it is? I mean, do you think that story was concocted because of all the natural disasters on Earth? Flooding was maybe something that occurred the most, and that man could relate to it better than any other form of natural destruction.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I think probably.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
And that's true. I mean, flooding occurs all over the planet. I mean, tornadoes are typically, relegated to certain parts of the world. I mean, Midwestern United States being one of the most famous. Hurricanes, cyclones, those are more tropical area events. So, but the one thing that everybody has in common is flooding. So that's definitely an interesting point that you bring up, Adam.
And then because they didn't understand it, of course, and at that time they were superstitious, it became a god thing. I mean, it was caused by the gods.
Has anyone watched floodwaters come in? Because
I have not. Personally, like where you're standing there, you mean?
Yeah, you can see the water rising towards you.
No, I have not.
No, I don't think so, no.
I've actually seen that once back, I was in 1993, in a little town, it was about 93. A little town called Cherokee, Iowa that I grew up nearby, and there's a river that runs through it, and it typically floods every year because the town's at the bottom of a valley where the river runs through. That year was a particularly bad flood, and I happened to be in town. It already reached the banks, but then the neighborhoods that were close to, the low-lying neighborhoods in the town. A friend of mine had lived with her family there, and we watched the water creep up the street. And then, well, obviously now it's time to evacuate. So, but I mean, seeing something like that is almost a supernatural experience. It's just really eerie to see this water just relentlessly creeping towards you, like almost seemingly going uphill in a way.
Sure, like it's a force of its own kind of.
Yeah. So of course, I mean, primitive people seeing that happen, I mean, it wouldn't be too bad of a stretch of the imagination for them to expect that it's a supernatural event.
Right. Yeah, we have flood. I mean, I'm in central Illinois, and the Illinois River runs right through my town, and it's a bluffy town where there's houses all along the river, and every couple of years there's a flood, and some years just like what you're describing. Mm-hmm. But I've never actually gone down there when it's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
and watched it, but it just, I don't know why people live there, honestly, but they do. And roads get closed where you can't, they're covered in water, and you just have to go a different way.
Yep. All right, so we'll wrap it up.
Well, why was the city of New Orleans ever?
New Orleans is in a terrible location.
Great idea, wasn't it?
Yes, and to rebuild it, brilliant.
And then what is it? It's just pretty much the entire country of the Netherlands is also in a really bad spot. Right.
It's just going to end up getting swallowed by water.
Yeah. All right. So we'll continue.
The Egypts themselves were inextricably connected with Osiris in death, such that when Osiris rose from the dead, so would they in union with him. By the time of the New Kingdom, not only the pharaohs, but the mortal men and women who built the pyramids. So here's what happened. The pharaohs figured out that if you offer eternal life for the workers, they'll work harder and you don't have to pay them as much. So Marx got that right, one of the few things he got right. The opiate of the masses. The masses don't need promises of an afterlife. They need sustenance now. This is a problem with religion. So that's where that comes from. First, you just want, as a pharaoh, a king, a leader, you just want eternal life for yourself. Forget the people. Well, then you find out they'll work harder, and they'll support you more if you give them some alms, like eternal life. Shortly after the crucifixion of Jesus, there rose another Messiah, Apollonius of Asia Minor, whose followers claimed he was the Son of God, that he was able to walk through closed doors, heal the sick, cast out demons, and raised a dead girl back to life. He was accused of witchcraft, sent to Rome before the court, was jailed, but escaped. After he died, his followers claimed he appeared to them and ascended into heaven. This redemption after being oppressed is a very common myth throughout history. And you can understand the psychology behind it.
Okay.
The Native American...
Go ahead.
Redemption after being oppressed. And when I heard this, I'm getting a little echo here again. When I heard this, I thought, individuals, not only groups of people who are manipulated by religion, but on an individual level, I could certainly relate to this, where you have some type of personal suffering in your life, and you're promised redemption if you just stick it out, which, of course, never happens.
But it motivates you, doesn't it? I mean, it kind of makes you hang in there, and
right, it does.
And
it gives you that false sense
too. I think it is a pacifier.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, and it's amazing the people who, even after unthinkable tragedies occur in their life, that they just keep on believing.
Right.
They don't question the benevolent creator who is supposed to stop the tragedy from occurring, or actually
protect or
turn around, whatever, heal the sick. They never question. They just go on believing. Yeah.
My friend
What a
whose
deal.
son died from a heroin overdose about a year ago, just recently, like yesterday, posted a big long comment on her Facebook page, exactly what you're talking about, and just it was just sad to me, the praising God, and I mean, I don't know how. I don't understand it anymore. I guess I used to, but I just don't understand how God is good and all this when that kind of a tragedy just.
And it even works its way down to these charlatan TV preachers, like Benny Hinn, where Benny Hinn will promise somebody's child will get well and the child ends up dying.
Like has
and
cancer.
they don't blame Benny Hinn. They don't have any criticism of Benny Hinn. It's amazing, and yet people have a hard time forgiving another person just for calling them a name. But they'll forgive this TV preacher for promising to heal their kid, and
it didn't happen.
And it didn't happen, and they still, oh no, we still love.
They just respin
Benny
it
Hinn
and say it wasn't God's will, or so. There's a greater good in this, or I mean, they all. It's like.
It's fascinating.
It really is how the mind.
Mm-hmm. This thought process. Do you think there's parallels of it in the political realm as well?
Oh, that's a good question. There's certainly a blindness in politics. Yeah. I mean, we see that, and that's why I'm really glad that I'm an iconoclast. Although people say that, you're so negative. Well, you want to see it as that, fine, but I don't look to people, even the people I admire the most, like Ron Paul, or let's say Harry Brown, Thomas Jefferson. I don't look at these people as perfect beings. They're human, and they have flaws. Now, you guys, I consider you guys perfect, and I would never.
Well,
of course, you guys have any flaws, but so it's nice to know that I have someone I can look up to. But nobody. When Ron Paul gets it wrong, you got to call him out for it. It doesn't mean you hate him. It doesn't mean you're going to, throw him under the bus. Right. It just means, look, I disagree with you, Dr. Paul, on this, or I disagree with you, Dr. Shermer, or Dr. Harris, and that's it. And you go on, and you extract the best of these people, and you dismiss the worst, but don't hold hero worship.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
And don't reject. It seems like with the division of like leftists and righties, they reject entire people because instead of gleaning, well, this guy is, I don't like what you said. Everybody isn't all one way or another.
Right. This happened with Tom Woods, and Tom Woods is a religious person. In fact, he converted to Catholicism, and he had a podcast where he asked if believing in God or religion was a stupid thing. And people who were Tom Woods fans suddenly said, "Oh, I'm never listening to you again because you're a believer." Well, that's just foolish.
It is foolish. Yeah.
I mean, Tom Woods is one of the great minds of libertarianism, anarcho-capitalism. If you throw him out, you're really doing a disservice to yourself more than Tom Woods.
Right.
Now, Lou Rockwell, on the other hand, he's garbage.
Well, I have lost a lot of respect for Lou Rockwell since this Trump business. And unfortunately, LRC used to be my main libertarian bookmark. It has now switched to Reason magazine.
Yeah.
Reason Nice is really good.
I'm sorry,
it is.
But they're just jumping on this Trump bandwagon, and it seems like nothing Trump does is wrong. And I'm just waiting for. And I think, and this would be a topic maybe for another podcast, but I think if they talk about divisions within the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, but I think we might be seeing the division among libertarians.
Yeah.
Where you have libertarians who support Trump and libertarians who don't.
I mean, we're seeing that just today on the group page.
Yeah.
Have you been on there this morning, Adam?
Yeah, I was on there.
There's some threads there that are fairly contentious with, just exactly what you described, the people that don't hate Trump and the people that do hate Trump.
That's been going on for quite some time.
It has. And it seems like it's coming to a head more. I mean, it has.
Well, we got that one kid who's obviously, I don't even know if he belongs there, but he's been...
No, I mean, I admin that group, and I'm terrible. I really should pay more closer attention to the group. I mean, I do check it probably a few times a week.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's my job.
a lot of my online activity is more in the anarchist sphere. I'm mostly members of agorist and anarcho-capitalist groups. Leftist anarchists, like anarcho-communist groups, I always get booted out of those for obvious reasons. So... but I mean, that's been, I mean, among anarcho-capitalists and agorists, there has been that debate basically the whole election cycle about whether Trump is a positive or a negative. Of course, there's the camp where I would identify with as, well, Trump is a statist, so he's just as bad as Obama or Bush or anybody else. Other ones would say, well, Trump is going to destabilize the government. That's what we want. So, plus, Trump.
We just don't know, and I don't hate the guy. I'm skeptical until he proves to me that he's going to keep some promises.
That's right.
And since no politician, no president in my lifetime has ever done anything but grow government, you can understand how I'm a little gun shy about Trump.
Right. And we should be. I mean, we can't get caught up in the cult of personality worship. Either way, like we hate him because he said pussy, or we love him because he's going to make America great again.
Exactly.
Either side is.
You got to watch him,
because it doesn't matter what he's actually like. It matters what he does.
Exactly.
How what he does affects us. That's really, as a libertarian, that's all we should care about.
I have a neoconservative friend. He's a rather rightist. Mm-hmm. And when Obama came into office, I remember this. He said, "Look, I'm willing to give this guy a chance," and that's all anybody wants.
Yeah.
But then it didn't take long for Obama to start breaking his promises.
Oh yeah.
And so once he did, there was no reason to give Obama any more chances.
Exactly.
And so I'm hoping that these libertarians, well, first of all, I'm hoping that Trump succeeds, of course. I'm not hoping that he fails.
Right.
I'm hoping that he succeeds in bringing less government, more individual liberty, even though and more economic freedom, even though I don't see any of those things on his platform.
I don't either.
No.
But still, I'm hoping that somehow they come to fruition. But if they don't, I really hope that the Rockwell group will say, you know what, guys, I think we got a little bit, we're a little over enthusiastic, and we're admitting our buyer's remorse now.
All right. Another person who claims they're a libertarian, I never thought he was, but Alex Jones, who has been a staunch Trump supporter. I'm waiting for him to turn on Trump, though, because that has been his bread and butter for his whole career, is to demonize whoever the administration in power is as being part of the globalist elite conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
That's been his MO for his entire career.
Yep.
Now,
Alex Jones is to libertarianism from the right what Bill Maher is to libertarianism from the left. Right. I think he just uses it to attract listeners.
Right. He bills himself as an anti-establishment type, so that's why he calls himself a libertarian. I mean, we all know that he's just a lunatic. And
right. I mean, if you listen to him, he contradicts himself. He contradicts libertarian principles all the time.
I don't even know what you could pin his political beliefs down to being, just because he's so crazy. I mean, he just has really no coherent beliefs, period.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got
the only reason to listen to him is for the guests that he has on his show. Now, he does have, every once in a while, some really good guests. But other than that, there's no reason to listen to Alex Jones personally.
You know, it's funny how I first heard of Alex Jones. I heard about him many years ago, actually, when he still was not an established person. I had gone down this rabbit hole of something I was doing some research on, and I came across him because he had investigated the Bohemian Grove in California, I think it is.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That is right.
What made him famous, basically.
I remember that.
Yep. And that was like right after that
came.
came. Bohemian Grove is that that kind of like an elite, pretty much all the elite of the elite, they go, like men, go to this place every so often. And
it's a social gathering that happens once a year where all the...
And they have weird rituals like the Masonic do. They have like this big...
Oh, okay.
They have a big owl effigy, I think, that they...
It's... And I mean...
They claim that most of the past
So it's sort of like
presidents,
tribal ritual.
Yeah.
Back to...
It's not as nefarious as Jones makes it out to be. I think it's just kind of a greasing of the palms, you know. Of course, you know, he insists that's where they come up with their plans for world domination and to depopulate the earth and, you know, all kinds of weird... It's, yeah.
Right, the globalist conspiracy.
But I mean, it's just a way for wealthy and well-connected people to get together, make friends, maybe make some networking, some deals, which we know they do anyway. It's just,
right.
But you know, this way they can do it in private without the media prying in.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a big, huge, like 22,700 acre compound in California, and then like in July every year they have like a 2-week like big get together. You know,
security is very tight.
Right.
And security is super tight because every wealthy, well-connected man goes to that.
Yep.
So
is it global? I mean, like people from around the world go, or is it just the U.S.?
It's dominated by people from the U.S., but around the world, and it's basically the same thing as the Bilderberger Group, which got its name because of the Bilderberger Hotel where they originally meet, and it's the same type of thing. It's a social gathering where wealthy, well-connected people hook up with each other.
Yeah, I sent you the Wikipedia link for it, Betsy.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right, so there's 2 minutes left of this video, and we'll hammer that out here.
Americans in 1890 began a Messiah myth with a Paiute Indian, Wavoka, who received visions of God. He was thought to be the Messiah or the deliverer of the Messiah, in which the buffalo would all return, the white man would leave and go back to Europe, and life would become better again. This is what oppressed peoples do. They make up stories that makes them feel better. It's often claimed that you can't prove a negative. Us atheists, we can't prove there is no God. Okay, I can prove that humans created gods and religions, and I just did. And there's 50 more stories like this of the geographical location, the time you happen to have been born, the anthropology of religion, the psychology of religion, the sociology of religion. We know exactly how this happens now, all the way down to the neurology, the neuroscience of religion. We know that people are making this up. Now, of course, you can make the argument, well, God planted the God module in the brain so he could talk to us or something. How come we all seem to talk to different gods then? Are there just a bunch of them out there and they're competing for our brains? Why is it, as Dan Barker pointed out, there's very little agreement amongst believers? Why is that? So my conclusion then is that as you think about the House vote tonight, again, what's more likely? It's obvious that all these other gods are made up. You already know that. You agree with me on that. You're all atheists for all those other gods. So I would just implore you to go one God further. Thank you.
Okay. That's a good way to close on his point and wrap that up.
Yeah, I just like
nice
his
video
approach of, instead of trying to prove that there isn't a God, we can prove that humans created it. It's the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then you give all the evidence.
Man created God, yeah.
That's right.
Not the other way around. And great video clip.
Yeah,
Thank you, Betsy,
definitely.
for introducing us to that. And this is part of a bigger debate video. Did everybody see Richard Dawkins sitting in the audience?
In this video?
Yes.
No, I didn't. I saw
536 mark. You'll see.
Really?
You'll see Dawkins sitting in the audience. He was part of, I think, the larger debate. He mentioned Dan Barker, too, who's very good, at dismissing.
So is the whole debate on YouTube? Have you watched the whole debate?
I didn't, but I did watch the Dan Barker segment, and he's always good, because Barker, from his background as a fundamentalist Christian, he gives you some practical advice for getting people to think differently about their religious beliefs. And there's two things he said that you should be doing when you speak to other fundamentalists or those of faith. Try to assure them that you don't need the Bible or God to be a moral person, and give them examples, and then point out to them all those inconsistencies throughout the Bible, where the books don't agree with each other.
Now, I was just thinking here. So, I mean, we've been discussing over these Skypecasts and listening to videos from established skeptical and atheist thinkers. You know, Hitchens, Dawkins, Shermer, etc. Are there any new faces on the scene that you guys are aware of or think of that we might want to?
Yeah, let me go ahead and stop the recording now, okay?
Okay.
All right, so that concludes this episode of Libertarian Atheists Skypecast, and we'll see you next time.